What is up, everybody? Happy Friday to you. Very interesting Friday. Lots of random things have happened early today. We went on a field trip and then we didn't go on a field trip because the weather in Michigan has gotten so bad. We have like continuous snowfall. So the kids are happy. Early spring break, they get a chance to kick it off early. So, yeah, anyways, I was just kind of going through my social media feeds and answering some emails, and I caught that the Daily Wire had and Candace Owens had separated. And they had severed their relationship. Now, I saw the writing on the wall with this, honestly, really way back with that Candace and Kanye. Um, um, I think the White Lives Matter thing was something they were very excited about, right? Because that was something that offended the Black community. But obviously, when Candace started defending those tweets from Kanye, then obviously that was something that was not acceptable for her to do. And I could tell that the relationship between Candace and the Daily Wire was a little strained after that, but obviously she continued on. And here's the thing, you know, Candace Owens has a big enough following and platform at this moment in her career where she really doesn't need the Daily Wire, right? And they've grown big enough where they may or may not need Candace Owens. That is left to be said, because obviously, when you have a big name depart from any type of network, that network's going to hurt a little bit until they can kind of recoup a talent like that. We saw this with Fox News and Tucker Carlson. Fox has not been the same since Tucker has left. And that's very obvious. So, and that's just to say that we have Candace Owens in the Daily Wire, and the main faces of the Daily Wire are obviously Ben Shapiro and Jeremy Boring, and these two gentlemen are both Jewish. And I would say that I'm not gonna say which one is more extreme than the other, but I feel like you know Ben is more of, in my mind, a Talmudist Jew. So he's one that has maybe a level of superiority of himself than other people based off of maybe his skewed idea of Bible history or biblical history or just the Jewish history in general, because I don't view their history the same way that they choose to, and how many Christians have obviously been manipulated into believing their history. I kind of look at their history through the word of the Bible, and the word is the word, and those accounts by their fellow Hebrews matter. But with that being said, you got Candace Owens, she is a social and political, and I do still believe this, she's a social and political chameleon. And what I mean by that is that Candace is able to understand where the money conversations of the masses are going anyways, right? So she understands her leverage. I think that she liked her job at Daily Wire. I think that she probably would have stayed there as long as, she could continue to do her thing or whatnot. But she was in an environment of conflict. And, even though the Daily Wire is considered an independent media source, they're still relatively mainstream. When you think about the viewership of some of these independent media sources, they have, just as much, if not more, than the viewership of mainstream media outlets. And that is very important for people to understand. So Candace Owens, for example, her viewership could actually be more than a mainstream network at any given time. But I say that to say, she also kind of plays the Christian Zionist, or not Christian Zionist, but the Christian nationalist role, where, obviously she is one of those people who, I'm a patriot. She placates to the idealisms of those who are nationalists, and they're also patriots to America and America only. And but she also placates to those who are Christians as well. So, that's two huge demographics of people in your viewership audience base to appeal to. But Candace is also crafty in that she understands how to leech onto conversations in almost any space. So, when you see the red pill area kind of rising up, right? Now, all of a sudden, when Kevin Samuels died, you not only see Candace Owens leeching on to his talking points, you got people like Pearly Things as well, right? And the Daily Wire, obviously, they were trying to grab that Kevin Samuels demographics, and Candace Owens was really a good person to leverage to do that, right? Because she's a beautiful Black woman. And that is the star, like that was the money in the Daily Wire having Candace Owens, is because she's beautiful, she's Black, and she's intelligent. She's the epitome of what many people don't want to believe about Black People University. So she's sort of like that token. Like, we got a smart, Black, intelligent person over here on our side, and they're not talking and she's not talking like these victimized Democrat Blacks. That was money for the Daily Wire, right? Because you have a lot of objective Christian patriot type individuals who, they may believe certain things about Blacks, but then when they see a Candace Owens, they're like, well, no, because Candace Owens is X, Y, and Z. So you see that she is able to navigate through a lot of conversations and spaces, and she's like a social political chameleon. I say she's a chameleon also because, when you look at Candace Owens, she's like, my purpose, her purpose, and her initial beginning was to talk to Black America and to talk about the issues in Black America. But her manner in talking about Black America was really in a way that made Black people overall seem less intelligent. She was definitely elevating herself as this beacon or this token of intelligence for Black people. And I think that was the reason why a lot of Black people did not rock with Candace Owens. It was also the fact that the individuals that were gravitating to her message were very ignorant white individuals, white Christian nationalists, who have also made it up in their mind that Black people are less intelligent, no matter if the Black person that they are talking about is way more intelligent than them. So she was able to tap into those people too, because now she was their token. And I say this to say that, I saw the writing on the wall with Candace when she started being in defense of Kanye West about his attacks towards the Jewish community. And the reason why that writing was on the wall is because no matter if they want to claim it's a trope or not, the Jewish community has a lot of power, not just in America, but around the world. And they have always understood how to coordinate to empower themselves. And this has gone on with the Jews since ancient times, so they can't say that that's anti-Semitic. No, facts are not anti-Semitic, honey. Let's just be truthful about it. So, it's interesting because, as I've seen Candace evolve from those little controversies, I've actually seen probably the purest form of Candace Owens, where she now understood sort of the playground that she was in. You're in the playground where you have to say what they want you to say. You have to present how they want you to present. And it's not until they continue to challenge you that you're going to start really kind of snapping back. And especially when you have leverage. So Candace played ball up until the point where she knew she had leverage. And that leverage really came with her show growing on the Daily Wire, to the point where she understood that it was going to hurt the Daily Wire just as much as it would hurt her financially if she separated. But I think the whole situation though with Candace Owens and the Daily Wire kind of leads to a bigger picture and a bigger observation, and that is when people say that it's a trope that Jewish some individuals, I want to be very specific because it's not all Jews, but when some individuals from the Jewish community have an agenda and you are against that agenda for whatever objective reason you are, they will coordinate against you to smear you and to move against you so that in a negative way. And I just want to point out that that is not how God's people, that is not how God's children are to behave. So again, when we're talking about who are God's people and who are God's children, please keep that in mind when you see the overall behaviors, mindsets, and attitudes about any given people or group. And that's on an individual basis and group basis, right? Because again, you don't want to generalize all people from all groups because not all people in all groups are monolithic. They don't think the same way, right? And you do have to give grace to the voices that are different in any given group or community. But getting back to Candace, she was not only an asset to the Daily Wire, she was a liability to the Daily Wire because you do have a predominantly Jewish-funded independent network, right? Which obviously is placating to the conservative side of the conversation, right? You do have to walk on eggshells when you're in that type of circle, right? You do have to play ball because it's like a Three Musketeers mindset with a lot of people from that community, where it's all for one, one for all. It's a fraternity mindset. And so when you are in that fraternity, they're expecting for you to play ball in that fraternity, like everybody else. And that means that, if everybody is pro-Israel in this fraternity, then you need to be pro-Israel and you need to be vocal about it. So you can't be up in this fraternity with a neutral stance on anything, it seems like to me. So it's interesting, but it was expected. The writing was on the wall. Matter of fact, when Candace dropped the interview with Rabbi Barclay, the interview was sort of ending, and he goes, "Actually, I have a lunch with one of our mutual friends," and I kind of caught that, and I'm like, Candace is not about to be at the Daily Wire for very long. Right? Because obviously they're going to demonstrate to her their coordination. If you go against us, we will hurt your money. And so that's exactly what happened. So it's like when people want to talk about tropes and they want to talk about all kinds of, anti-Semitism, it's like, I'm just going to say, if it's a pattern observation by multiple people, and they all come to the same conclusion, it is a fact. And as Ben Shapiro, who is a contradiction of his own words, have said in the past, facts don't care about your feelings. But facts don't care about your feelings unless you are, obviously a Ben Shapiro who is passionate about something that he needs everybody else to be passionate about, right? And that's the thing. I think when you peel back the conversations about this Israel and Palestine conflict, you see Israel who wants the world to make them feel better about what they feel that they need to do in Palestine. And again, they say that they're fighting terrorism. I think if you look back at the entire history of that region, there are a lot of objective, and pragmatic things that other people would say that may not be the case. And it would be valid. Those would be valid observations as well. But it seems to me, and we saw this in that interview with Candace and that rabbi, that there's a level of supremacy going on here, entitlement to do certain things. And, I think it really just kind of goes back to all of the conversations and the ideas that, the populations have been sort of, conditioned into believing about Jewish people, that they're this victimized people, that they have this Holocaust and all these tragic things. And it's like, first of all, it is sad what Hitler decided to do to many Jews in the Holocaust. He was a maniac for that. But I think that it's also valid to note that World War I, there were millions of other people that died. Millions of other people. If you want to talk about the most horrific things in history, the Holocaust wouldn't even be in my top 10 list, because World War II saw 85 million people, human beings, lose their lives. So, I think that when you're looking at those conversations, you're saying, you're seeing a man who's telling, a woman that, hey, my atrocities, my pain, everything about what I got going on in my community is way more valid than anybody else's. And a lot of people reject a supremacist ideal like that, right? And I think that some people, they buy into all of this victimhood of the Jews because they really don't understand history themselves. And even down to the Christians, they don't really understand history from the context of the Bible. So, and if you look at the entire Bible and read what each and every account is really saying, you would understand why a lot of the hedge and the protection that the nation of Israel had from their God, why it was removed, and why so many other nations were green light to conquer them, right? And we know that at least they were not under the protection of the God that delivered them from Egypt and even got them through the wilderness and even helped them conquer many nations as they entered the promised land, because other nations were able to conquer them down to their second temple, Rome. So it's like, we get this, people like to deliver their history in a way where, look at what they did. They victimized their temples. It's like, well, when you read the Bible and the Bible prophecies, those things were supposed to happen because those were their judgments. So, and it's interesting, the psychology of societies today, because we live in this society where if somebody does something wrong, right, that other people are supposed to coddle them through their consequences. And that's exactly what I think people for centuries have been conditioned and skewed into doing, is coddling people through consequences. There were many nations that were conquered that they were just of the nations, right? But Israel did not start getting conquered until they continuously disobeyed the God of their forefathers. And I don't look at history, at least in the biblical context, and say Israel has always been a victim, because they haven't been. And even down to Israel being risen up from the nations, and this nation that we see today, that is not the Israel of the Bible. The Israel in the Bible is the only nation in human history that was literally truly created under God. And they were indivisible as long as they stayed in union with their God and their covenants, which they didn't do. They were supposed to be an example to all the other nations of how to be righteous people in union with their God, and they failed because they wanted to be like the other nations. So their God let them survive and exist like the other nations. And they dealt with the consequences just like any other nation that doesn't have the hedge of their God. So I think when you think about history and just all these arguments, it's like, I'm not going to make Israel feel better about their policy on their land about exterminating people. In my mind, this is just Israel trying to recreate what they should have did in the land of Canaan, the promised land, when they got there. And their job was to exterminate all of those people from the land because they practiced immorality, child sacrifice, and all kinds of things that God hates. They did not do that. And as a result, their God allowed other nations that they wanted to be like to conquer them. So when you understand what the Bible is really saying, you kind of understand that this nation of Israel that we see today, there's nothing biblical about this nation outside of the fact that it was supposed to rise again with the other nations doing, rising the desolate nation. And we saw that in 1948. Right. But outside of that, what they're doing to the Palestinians is, to me, a recreation of what they should have did in the land of Canaan. And once they clear those people out of that land, which I really feel like they're going to do, they're going to build their temple. And from their temple, they're going to supposedly present the seed of David, which already came through Yeshua, Jesus Christ, but obviously they're trying to recreate that moment in history as well. So if you understand Bible prophecies, if you understand what the Bible is saying, you have every right to be neutral in anything that is going on over there, because number one, it has nothing to do with you. You're looking at these things as, okay, they're foretold anyway. So, but in terms of support, like, why would anybody support anything on this earth that is ultimately going to be destroyed? And that's just the bottom line. We are living in the final days. And so we're going to see this earth start popping real hard with wars and conflicts, because that's what the first trumpet, the first scroll was about, is war on earth in a manner that we have never seen before. And mankind right now is capable of obliterating other mankind in a way that they've never before had the capabilities of doing. So we are right for us being the generations of Bible prophecies being fulfilled. And so I pray for everybody. I pray for people like Candace, because even though you say that you're Team God, if you are a patriot to a nation that is ultimately going to crumble like the rest of them, and I'm an American too, but I am also a Christian first, and I understand that my hope is in God's kingdom, not anything on this earth that ultimately will be destroyed. Because Daniel's prophecy, that statue, was not just showing us all the empires that would rise and fall, in mankind's history. It was also showing you the vulnerabilities of world empires and how each one that rose and fell, that you had the same problems. None of those empires were able to create a lasting empire that created peace and prosperity for every man on earth. Each one of them had monarchs and kings and slaves and people who were slaving for systems that ultimately did not benefit them. So the world is getting real. I think that we are having an awakening of, I see a lot of people with the word of God on their lips. Because I think a lot of people are realizing that this world is really in an interesting, volatile time in its history. And we should see what happens. I'm going to be talking more about Bible prophecies. If you like this video, feel free to subscribe. Don't forget to subscribe to my Substack newsletter, because that's where you're really going to see me break down some concepts that you should be thinking about, that a lot of the clergymen, in my opinion, have been derelict in sharing with you. So have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful weekend. If you celebrate Sabbath day, I hope you get some rest, reflect on God, and have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Bye.